Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are or when you are listening / watching the program. Glad to have you aboard today. It's a Friday. That means Brian Burke will be aboard in about 15 minutes' time. In the meantime, I wanted to, before we get started on the Stanley Cup playoffs tomorrow with a pair of games, wanted to park some time to talk about a team that really captured both our hearts and our imagination this year, and that is the Columbus Blue Jackets. And someone being very generous with his time is their general manager. He is Don Waddell, and he joins me now on the sheet. Don, thanks, first of all, so much for joining me here today. How are you? And thanks so much for your time.
Interesting day. We finished last night and we came up short of the playoffs, but everything that happened this year, we feel like we've taken a big step forward.
Well, the one thing, it is kind of weird when I say, I think this season was a success for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm sure it doesn't feel that way for you, your staff, the players, but considering everything that happened this season, I look at CBJ and say, initially it's a team that captured our hearts, and then later on it captured our imaginations as we saw what was possible and what the future is looking like. How would you evaluate this year?
Well, I said in September we could ever be playing meaningful games in March and April. It would be a win-win with everything that's transpired this year. And as the season went on, we had some peaks and valleys. But the one thing we didn't do is we never quit and we never broke up as a group. This is a special group here. And I said that trade deadline, I thought if I ripped any piece out of this locker room, it would have probably destroyed us. We had some tough times in March, but we rebounded. And that when you surround yourself in the circumstances, you need good people. And we had a great group here. I've worked with a lot of teams, a lot of players. This group was special after everything that happened, how they stuck together all year on and off the ice. And I think that's why we had the results we had. And yeah, we all want to be in the playoffs, but to think we were April 16th still in the playoffs hunt.
Yeah.
Said that before the start of the season, we would all have taken it.
Game 81. That's what I keep coming to. Columbus, you talk about meaningful games and taking next steps. Game 81. And, one of the questions that we're all wondering about with your Blue Jackets is, how did it happen? I mean, this team was given every reason, every excuse not to have a season like the one that you just had, which again, I consider a success. How did you do it?
Well, again, I'm going to really go to the locker room with the Boone Jenners, Brunson, Monahan, Werenski, Olivier. These guys really, not only they're great veterans on the ice, but they're really terrific off the ice, and they really helped our young players take that next step. So, usually during the year you have some, you're going to have peaks and valleys as a hockey team, but usually you have issues, around your team. We never had any issues. This group, we went on the road. They always went to dinner together. They did a lot of family things together when they're at home. And it was just, I'm going to be honest, in all my years, this was a special group to be around.
This was a team, like I mentioned, that captured our imaginations because, as you know, being in the game as long as you have, you can sell wins or you can sell hope. And there were times this year where the Columbus Blue Jackets sold both. And, we're looking now at, Marchenko and Fantilli and dare I even say Jet Greaves. Let me just pause on Jet Greaves for let me just pause for a sec. First of all, I love the story, of just Manny Legacy saying we're gonna drag this guy to camp. There's something here, and I'm taking him to camp. And this, but I gotta ask you, I always maintain that I don't make my minds up about goaltenders until I see 100 games. We're nowhere close to seeing 100 games from Jet Greaves, but I want to see, all the shooters have a look at him, write the book, and then see the goalie adjust, etc. How are you feeling about Jet Greaves here? And do you have an idea of what you have? Is this legit? Is this fool's gold? What is this with Jet Greaves?
Yeah. No, well, it's a great story because it's one of the best kids I've ever been around. I sent him down probably 5 or 6 times, and they always thanked me for the opportunity.
Wow.
And to me, I said to Rick Nash one day, I said, I wish he was a little bit harder on me to make it more difficult, but he's just such a nice kid. But so going back, we watched him last year in the playoffs. He played well. This year in Cleveland, Pretty good most of the year. Brought him up a few times. Did a good job. Our coaches when we went in the year obviously are more familiar with Merlikins and Tarasoff. Merlikins actually played very well for a long stretch, and then had a few bad games, but he won us more games than he lost. Tarasoff sat for a long time, came in, played a few games, had a couple good ones, some bad ones, and the coaches really felt that we had to give these guys a chance. At the same time, though, it's important for young goalies like Jet to play games. We knew Merlikins was playing most of the games here, and through January, he played very well. That Jet was going to come up here and play a game once every couple of weeks. So decided to leave him in the minors, let him play in Cleveland, play every night. So am I surprised at his success? Probably, yes, because it was unbelievable the last 5 or 6 games. I'm not surprised. He's a very athletic, not a big goalie, very athletic, and he catches everything. Never, very rare do you have a rebound when it's coming near him because he always finds a way to catch it or stop it. So to answer your question going forward, he's certainly a guy that is in the mix for sure. And we're going to watch him. He's going back to Cleveland. Hopefully, help them get in the playoffs. Hopefully, have a little run there, which is only going to help them with the experience of going into next season. But certainly, I think he's got a bright future as an NHL goalie.
Is this the proverbial good problem to have as a manager?
Well, it's a good problem to have. We still got some issues to resolve, overall because um, when I look at our team, we need to be better at every position. We scored a lot of goals this year, so that's
Yep.
a good thing. But we also gave up a lot of goals, and goaltending and defense always get blamed for your goals against. But sometimes it's this forwards. I use Fantilli as a good example. Here we started off the year, 20 years old, playing for scoring goals, offensive player. When he learned, Dean did a great job with him after 20 games, teaching him and just preaching to him about playing a 200-foot game. When he started playing a 200-foot game and been more responsible defensively, he got more ice time. When you get more ice time, you get more offensive opportunities. So to me, every position is going to be, we got to take a look at. We know we're not good enough yet. We might be good enough everything goes well to make the playoffs, but that's not the goal. So we're going to evaluate every position here in the next couple of months and decide what we're going to do in come free agency and trades at the draft.
Let me park a quick second here on Fantilli. The one thing that's exciting about Adam Fantilli is, and has been going back to even playing at Michigan, it seemed that every time I would watch Fantilli, he'd want to do everything at the same speed, and that is top speed, fast, 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 everything. And you've been around elite level players your whole life. You know that that's not the recipe for success. It's great to have that in your bag of tricks, and that's awesome, and that's the first thing you notice with Fantilli. But you gotta mix it up. How much of that is how much of Dean Evason's work with him is around what you can't do everything at that top speed.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. It's almost like you sat in a room when these conversations were going on because, particularly as a centerman, because he wants to try to go up ice as fast as he can and try to beat that first guy before he throws it off. Where a lot of times, especially in the last 25, 30 games, he realized, I'm playing with good players. If I give them the puck
Yep.
and get open, I'm going to get it back, which happened last night of the game before, where he Johnson gave Johnson the puck. He gave it back to him. And he had not an easy goal, but a goal. So it's all a learning process. We forget that he's 20 years old, very skilled, high end pick. But these guys, they come through, and I've watched it for years, as you have, through juniors in college, where they're stars of their team, and they pretty much, can do whatever they want, whenever they want. Well, not in the best league in the world. You got to learn to use your teammates, know when to use your speed, know when to hold up a little bit. So I go back to 2025 game mark where I think he really started to catch on, and the coaches did a great job with him to learn him that and teach him that. And as he got better and better on it, his offense became even bigger and bigger.
One player that we saw really hit his stride this year, and it was amazing. Was Matthew Olivier. And I know the last time that we spoke here, you talked about, look, we want to re-sign this guy. He's a big piece, and it's not as if he's just that luxury item tough guy that you want a few times a season. Here's someone that kills penalties, takes a regular shift. Everson starts games with Matthew Olivier. Like it really is. It's really great to see someone like that hit their stride. It's great from my point of view to realize that there's still a real place for players like that still in the game, and two, to finally see him taken care of financially. Like, can you sort of describe, that feeling of getting that deal done with
Yeah.
Matthew Olivier? Like, is there a part of, Don Waddell, old school hockey guy, that goes, you know what, son, you earned this, and I'm glad that there's a place for a player like you in the NHL in the year 2025?
1,000%. So back up a little bit. The last 4 or 5 years, I tried to trade for the player when I was in Carolina, and they weren't going to let him go. What happened this year, Dean, right off the bat, gave him more responsibility. So you go from a guy that, if you look at his league average before this year, it's 8, 9 minutes a night. People expect him to fight. We all knew he had something more in him. Dean gave him that responsibility this year. So it's when you get the responsibility given to by the coaching, the next step is, what's the player going to do with it? He took advantage of it, and he played every night the same way that we know. Finishes checks, he hits hard, scraps when he has to scrap, but he's got good hands. And he ended up with 18 goals. So to answer your question though, when you sign a player, get to know him this year. He's one of my favorite guys that I've dealt with because he's very positive, wants to be part of the solution. If he misses some shifts because of power play, whatever, he's a very much a cheerleader on the bench, and he stands up for our guys. When you give a player a 6-year deal at $3 million, you feel good about it. To answer your question, I wanted to extend him a long term, give him that security. He's always made $1 million or whatever, and now he's been renting a house here in Columbus for multiple years. Now he goes, buys a house, gets his family, and you got to know the person, because he's not going to change as a hockey player. The $3 million versus $1 million is not changing Matthew Olivier. I can guarantee you that.
Real quick, I have like 2 minutes left with you. I know you're busy today. I do want to ask you about Sean Monahan and his importance to the team. We know why he signed with Columbus. We know why that he's with CBJ, and everything about this season and going forward with Columbus is going to be about 13 and the memory and the legacy of Johnny Gaudreau. I'll just open the floor to you, Don. Your thoughts or anything that comes to mind when you hear the name Sean Monahan.
Yeah, first on the ice, you had average over a point a game, but in the locker room, we went through this training camp. Everybody mourns differently over losing their best friends and that, and the team was kind of reacting off of Sean's emotions, and Sean realized that. And there's not a day that goes by that we don't all think about Johnny and Matthew, but when it came time to play, Sean made it clear that Meredith said at the funeral and said at open night, Johnny wants you guys to play hockey. I want you to play hockey. Let's go play hockey. And he really stepped up as one of the leaders in that locker room. We lost, unfortunately, Boone Jenner before the season started. We lost Brunson 3 games in. So he really took a big step from a leadership standpoint. And I think the guys all gravitated to him, and of course led to our success during the season.
We love it. Listen, all our hearts were with CBJ this year, and things look good for the future. Best of luck, free agency, the draft, etc. We wish you all the best, and thanks for making time for us today. Really appreciate it, Don. Congratulations on. I know it may sound weird, even though you're not in the postseason. Congratulations on a successful season.
No, I appreciate it, Jeff, and thank you for having me today. Thank you.
There he is. Don Waddell is the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Made it to game 81. You always hear about the beginning of the season, a manager will say, we want even a team that, has struggled and wants to take that next step. They'll say, we want our team to play meaningful games. Listen, it was looking for the longest time here like the Columbus Blue Jackets were going to make it into the playoffs, and we're all saying what a great thing that would be. but it's a team that made it to Game 81 before their playoff hopes were extinguished. And it is one of those teams that you look at and you look around the Metropolitan Division and you say, next season, why not Columbus? Why not Columbus? It is Friday, and that means Berkey Day. I want to let you know what's going on in the program today. We have a few things to get to. I want to thank Don Waddell for stopping by the program, and the great Todd Chirac, communications director for CBJ, for making that happen. Daily Outlines, presented by our friends and presenters at FanDuel. Make every moment more with North America's #1 sports book. That is FanDuel. And coming up on the program, you just heard from Don Waddell. You will hear from another manager, and that is Brian Burke. You will hear us talk about things like Zane Parekh making his debut last night, a glimpse to the future for the Calgary Flames. Nick Heashen arriving with the Carolina Hurricanes, and some locker clean-out days, and some interesting comments from, amongst other people, and we'll get to Philadelphia in a second with Sean Couturier, Rick Tocchet and his future with the Vancouver Canucks. It is Friday, and we reserve that day for one person and one person alone, and that is Brian Burke, who joins us here on the sheet to take your questions and talk about the news of the day. Berkey joins me now. Brian, how are you today, sir?
Let's listen to Donnie Waddell for another 2 hours.
You know, he's one of my favorites, and you know, the one of the things that I love about talking to Don is he's seen a lot. He's heard a lot. He's been around for a long time. He'll always give you something in the interview like, oh, yeah, we tried to trade for Olivier when I was with Carolina for the last 4 or 5 years. His story about Matthew Olivier is great. The Sean Monahan story about Johnny Gaudreau is great. I have a lot of time for Don Waddell. And I'm always interested in the fraternity of managers. Berkey, where's Don Waddell in there?
Oh, he's right up there. He played one NHL game, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And then when he was going to college, he played at Northern Michigan, I believe. When he was playing college hockey, he started his first business, which was a porta potty business. So he would go up on the freeway, dump off full porta potties, put empty ones back up, and drive down the freeway. That's how he started his business. Now he owns real estate all over, everywhere he's played, everywhere he's worked. Very wealthy man. Great guy.
And he's always one of our favorite interviews, too. He really is wonderful. Okay, we'll go wide brush and then narrow down. We'll do reverse pyramid with you here, Berkey. When you look at the playoffs, which begin tomorrow, we have 2 series. But when you look at the full field, which series has captured your interest the most?
Well, I think the goaltending matchup in the Florida-Tampa series is really interesting. I think that's going to be fascinating. I also think watching Connor Hellebuck go up head-to-head with the other guy there, with Craig Binnington.
Jordan Binnington.
Jordan Binnington. That's going to be – those are the 2 big stories for me to watch with interest.
You know, let's park some time and start there. The Winnipeg Jets, you know, without Nick Ehlers, we'll see about Gabe Vilardi. You know, I'll tell you, there were a couple of scares the other night, you know, with Nemestikov and the ankle and Cole Perfetti. You know, we talked a lot this week, you know, after the Jason Robertson injury with the Dallas Stars about those last couple of games, Berkey. I know we don't like, you know, load management, and people pay a lot of money for hockey tickets. I understand that. But as a manager, as a coach, as anyone in the front office, are you not holding your breath those last 2 games before the playoffs, just saying, what happened to Dallas, we don't want to happen to us?
Yes, you are. And I don't know, whoever taught players to turn their, like Nemestikov, turn your foot sideways to block a shot.
It was
they've improved the shot blocking qualities of the skate, but turning your skate sideways is still not recommended. I don't get it.
It was like, what was the old saying? Kick save and a beauty. I was like old Johnny Bauer. He turned it and stuck his foot out. Like, what are you thinking? You've made the playoffs. You won the Presidents. You're playing on Saturday. What are you doing, guy?
You want the pucks to hit the right on your laces. All those pucks should hit your laces. You should be square to the shooter. The puck should hit right in your laces. You can't get hurt. You can get hurt a little bit. It'll sting. You get a burner out of it. But you can't get hurt seriously that way. Turning your ankle sideways, death.
How much would you? We talked about this a lot yesterday in advance of the final game for a lot of these teams. How much would coaches, or let's just personalize it for you, as a manager, would you tell your coach, like, tell these guys nothing dumb. We don't want anything after the whistle. We don't want big hits. We don't want any of that. Let's play Nolan Ryan baseball here. No hit, get out of town, and get to the playoffs.
I would dumb that down a little bit. I would say let's just be sensible here the last couple of games. I wouldn't sit people out or try. I did once in a while, but not very often. I think players have to still play to prepare. So it was no, it was more just be sensible here, guys. Let's not like the late hits and all that stuff. That's crazy, but yeah, you want to just get through this the best you can.
You know, we talked yesterday about there being a sort of there's that protocol in the preseason where kids don't hit vets, right? They don't as a kid. I know you try to make a name for yourself, but like don't take a run at a veteran player in preseason. Like vets are, preparing themselves for the regular season here. I understand you're trying to make the team, but don't try to make a name for yourself on a 15-year vet. In a game where one team is going to the playoffs and the other team isn't, I don't know if there's a code about this one that you don't try to take runs at guys that are going into the playoffs. Does that exist between teams?
I think so. I think there used to be, but I don't think so. I think now it's more, if you get a chance to put a big lick on a guy, you're still going to do it. I saw a couple of big hits in the last two nights. Clearly, there's not. If there's a code, someone's not telling anyone about it.
I want to get to some of the comments from some of the players today, and I want to get your thoughts on Rick Tocchet talking about needing to go through a process here with Vancouver before anything gets papered and anything gets signed. But I do have to ask you about the Battle of Ontario, and obviously that is a big one here. Congratulations to the Ottawa Senators who emerged from that pack that includes Buffalo and the the Detroit Red Wings. And so they make it in, and we get to see Brady Tkachuk in the postseason. Everyone's expecting big things. I look at this series, Berkey, and I say this one might just ride on the performance of Linus Ullmark. He's never really had a chance to. Berkey, okay, Bill?
Just got a cough.
Go for it. There you go. Turn your volume down. We're good. I'm just gonna make a point about Linus Ullmark. This whole series kind of seems to me to hinge around the performance of Linus Ullmark here. If Ullmark's good, Ottawa has a legit shot. If he's not, it might be a quick series. Is that an oversimplification?
No, I don't think so. I think they need Linus Ullmark to come up big, but I think he's going to. I think he's ready for this moment. I think their team is ready for this moment. I don't think they can win this series, even with great goaltending. I think they're overmatched and they're not used to the playoff format yet. I think it's going to be really hard for them, but I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a 7-game series and see who wins. But I think Linus Ullmark has to be great for them to have any chance at all.
Yeah. You ever thought on Montreal making it in here? I mean, they took it right down to the nub, took it right down to the last possible moment, the last possible game, last possible period against Carolina to salt it away. Do you have a thought on, look, that logo, those fans, this team, that history back in the postseason?
Who doesn't cheer for Montreal in the playoffs, really? Like,
It's
I worked
the
in
best.
Toronto. We hate Montreal. But I love Montreal now. I was cheering for them. The playoffs are best when Toronto's in and Montreal's in. So I was happy for them. I sent Jeff Gordon a note. I sent Kent Hughes a note. And I said, good job. I sent Marty St. Louis a note. Good job, good luck. But I do think the clock's going to strike midnight on these guys. I don't think they can win this series. Washington is too big, too strong, too good.
Yeah.
Goaltending's too good. I think it's a daunting task, but it's a great story. Just getting there is a big part of the race.
And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned, it's always better when Montreal is in. It is still amongst all 32 teams, the most distinct team, culture, market, fans, history, all of it. Like in this sea of NHL teams, that is one that you can make the argument, at least culturally, stands apart from everyone. I'll give you a quick story. I mean, I don't get like intimidated, or I don't get fanboyish around hockey people or hockey players. But I remember doing rinkside for hockey night once, and I was standing outside the Habs room waiting for Andre Markov. And Madame and Monsieur Bellevaux at the end of every period would stand up and go down the hallway and go to the concourse and go have a refreshment. And I was standing there, and I'm like, here comes Mr. Bellevaux, here comes Mr. Bellevaux. Oh my God, this is incredible. And I sort of nodded and said, Monsieur Bellevaux. And he said, Salut, Jeff. And Berkey, I froze. I was like, how does Jean Bellevaux know my name? It was like one of those like total fanboy, like I'm a little 12-year-old hockey fanboy moments, like, oh my God, Jean Bellevaux knows my name. It was honestly, but like everything about that organization and the people in it and the history kind of bleed that, don't they?
It reeks of class. It reeks of elegance. It reeks of championships. It's a great story, great uniform, great pass. So yeah, the league is better when Montreal's in. I'm happy for them. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think they have much of a chance here. I really don't.
Now, it is interesting, too, that, you look at that sort of next group in the Eastern Conference as, teams like the Boston Bruins bow out. Here come the Ottawa Senators. Here come the Montreal Canadiens. How far away do you think both Buffalo and Detroit are? I mean, the two that have emerged here, maybe you can make the argument that Montreal emerged quicker than we thought that they would, but Ottawa and Montreal have emerged here. How close are Detroit and Buffalo?
Well, you got to be careful looking at Buffalo because they've put some really big pieces in place. I know people are going after the GM, but they've put a lot of key pieces in place. They put some good young players at key spots into the position. I think they're a lot closer than people think. Same with Detroit. The plan there to rebuild has been taking longer than people thought. People are annoyed at the lack of progress, but they're closer than people think.
Is that, with Detroit, the Yzer plan, you mentioned it's taken probably longer than people have wanted. There's that, relatively beautiful new building that's sitting there that hasn't seen any playoff action. I have a hard time believing that with some, was it $22 million worth of cap space this offseason, that the Detroit Red Wings aren't going to go big game hunting. You've talked about, the right time to go big game hunting. Is it the right time now for Steve Yzerman to say, and I know the free agent class isn't, outside of your Marners, et cetera, Sam Bennett's isn't great, but is it time now for Steve Yzerman to really make a splash here?
The answer to that question should never change. It depends on the fit. If the player's a good fit, he's worth the money, then it makes sense. But it has to be a good fit. It can't be Nashville where they signed 3 free agents, a big dough. It wasn't a good fit. Didn't work out. Just spending money to lose more money is not a good idea. Not a good plan. So no, it's got to be. Stevie Yzerman's a real smart guy. He'll figure out, here's what we need. Here's what we can spend. We get them. If we don't, we don't. But just signing guys, that doesn't work.
Let me ask you about Tampa. There's one player that I wanted to ask you about specifically, and that is Brandon Hagel, who scored 33 even strength goals and 3 shorthanded goals, no power play goals for Hagel. He was involved in that first fight with Matthew Tkachuk at the Four Nations. Here's a player who was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres and never signed. Traded by the Chicago Blackhawks and has really found a home, obviously, with the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's tough to get a headline. You have the goalie, you have the winger, you have the center, you have the defenseman. All these guys are probably going to the Hockey Hall of Fame. But the one guy that pops this year for me is Brandon Hagel. You have a thought about him? No power play goals, and here he is, putting up 35 goals, Berkey.
Okay, first things first. No power play goals. Is it 36 goals? Is that right?
35.
35 goals. Why isn't he on the second power play, for God's sake? That's question number 2.
I'll tell you what, that first unit power play, there's no point in being on the second unit power play. Yeah, Kucherov and Point and Hedman and Gensel, and that's it. They're done.
I think Brandon Hagel is a really great player, a really underrated player. No one ever talks about him as one of the top players in the league, but he is. Effectively and functionally, he is. And a guy can do that much damage, shorthand and even strength. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Good for him.
He really has distinguished himself. Not that it's sort of come out of nowhere, because gradually, as you see, every season that's gone along with Tampa, his production has gone up. But I didn't even.
When you watch that fight, Jeff, you go back and watch that fight. He did just fine in that fight.
Sure
He took a
did.
couple early, but he won
He
that fight in my mind.
he not only did he do well, but he's given up size and experience
Yeah.
to a really tough Matthew Tkachuk. How do you see this series? You mentioned, the goaltending battle will be interesting between Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky. When you look at the Battle of Florida here, like, how do you measure this one up, Berkey?
It's too many question marks for me for Florida. Will Matthew Tkachuk be able to play? How effective will he be? They don't get back to Ekblad for 2 games. There's too many question marks in my mind. I just don't think it's the same team going in to defend their title. I think Tampa's made some really good changes. I think Tampa's going to beat them.
We talked about Don Waddell to start the program. There were 2 teams that we were all cheering for this year. One of them, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the other, the Calgary Flames, the 2 teams that Johnny Gaudreau played for. Do you have a thought on the season that we just saw from the Calgary Flames? I mean, we saw Zane Parekh coming in, and Zane Parekh scoring a goal last night. Do you have a thought on Calgary here, Berkey?
I think Calgary's season was a great success, even though they missed the playoffs. Much like Columbus, I think both those teams got to take a bow. They hung in there till game 81, like you say, or game 80. Yeah. They're both picked to miss the playoffs by a mile. Both teams did really well. They set a good foundation for both teams. I like them both. Hey. 4 guys, I think, last night scored their first goal.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It was quite a night around the NHL. Backing up to Florida Tampa for 1 second, Scott in the chat says they should open the series up with a Tkachuk-Hagel fight if Tkachuk is healthy.
I wouldn't start with any fights. If I were Florida, I'd worry about winning hockey games right now.
Yeah.
I think that worked in the 4 Nations. It was a great tactic. It set the whole thing up. I don't think that's sensible now. Yeah, if Tkachuk can play, if Matthew Tkachuk can play, he's got to stay healthy. Doesn't need a fight.
Leave it for Sam Bennett.
Yeah, and they got other guys too.
Let me ask about a couple of series here, and then we'll wrap up and move on the show here. Colorado and Dallas really took a turn. We all know about the injury to Miro Heiskanen and how that really damaged this team, and now the Jason Robertson situation. He's listed as week to week by the Dallas Stars. Listen, they are insulated up front. That's true. The right side of the blue line, there's a whole bunch of question marks. Meanwhile, the Colorado Avalanche, and we've seen them like damage big teams in the West. That is a management group that recognized a goalie issue and changed it and brought in players down the middle. And man, like, they look good and deep and rich at every single position. How do you measure off Colorado and Dallas, Berkey?
Too many question marks for me. I said 2 weeks ago, I said Dallas was the best team in the West and the best team in the league. I thought they'd win the Stanley Cup. I don't share that opinion now. 2 things. One, Heiskanen, who's a premier player, him being out, the other injuries, but also their goaltending has disappeared all of a sudden. Jake Ottinger hasn't been able to stop the puck, so that's a bad formula going against the Colorado team. So I'm going with Colorado now.
There were a lot of people. It's interesting you mentioned that. There were a couple of people that I spoke to that said, who's going to really feel the Heiskanen injury more than anybody else? I said who? He said Jake Ottinger. Because Heiskanen makes it a lot easier to play net. I mean, he is so efficient in his own zone. Not that he has like the big flashy style of defensive play, but man, he makes it easy for a goalie when he's back there. The other one that feels different this year, Berkey. At the beginning of the year, I said, I don't care who plays in the postseason. I just don't want to see LA and Edmonton again. Now I do want to see LA and Edmonton again, because this one feels different to me. Does it feel different to you?
Yes, I'm going to go with LA. I hate betting against those 2 guys. I love them both. I think they're great players. They can take over a series. I could look really dumb on this, but LA has home ice. They've been great all year, and their goaltending has been superb. Superb. They've got a good team. They play good team defense. They got balance. They got a lot of balance. They got a great goaltender. I'm going with LA. And home ice is not insignificant in this.
Well, I mean, LA can't be beaten on home ice. I mean, their record is best in the NHL. Like when Jim Hiller gets that last change, when he dictates the matchups, it's tough for the Los Angeles Kings to lose a game. And the emergence. After they moved out Pierre-Luc Dubois and cleared up that spot for Quentin Byfield to slide into his natural position of center, all of a sudden things look, and he's been on an absolute heater. Like the last month of the season, Byfield has been incredible, and Kopitar and Deneau and Byfield right up the gut. That's tough, especially going up against a defense that now is without Matthias Ekholm. I'm with you, Berkey. I like Los Angeles in this series. To me, they don't have like the big superstars like Edmonton does, but they just look deeper. And in a series like this, I wonder if that's going to be it for the LA Kings.
They look deeper. They look better balanced, and they look like the goaltending will be an edge for them. So
yes,
I really think it's their turn.
Awesome. On that, we'll let you go. Berkey, enjoy day 1 of the playoffs, which is tomorrow. And we'll check back next Friday. Thanks, pal. You be good.
Thanks, Jeff. See ya.
There he is, Brian Burke, joining us every Friday here on the sheet. You know, it is interesting that Edmonton, like I said, expectations high for the Oilers. For this team, much like it was last year, it's Stanley Cup or bust. But I don't know that they get out of the first round. Like, yeah, they have the 2 elite, and it might be enough. Like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, it might be enough. But if you measure off who's got the better goaltending, it's the Los Angeles Kings. It's the Los Angeles Kings all day long. The question marks still remain for the Edmonton Oilers. Meanwhile, Darcy Kemper is probably going to end up being a runner-up for the Vezina this year after Connor Hellebuck. The better blue lines with the Los Angeles Kings as well. Gavrikov, outstanding. Mikey Anderson, outstanding. Drew Doughty. Down the middle is intriguing because there isn't the firepower that Edmonton can boast. But you look at what all of a sudden now the Los Angeles Kings with Byfield moving to the middle. Big, strong, can produce. You know, you start to get down to that third line in the playoffs, and how many times have we talked about this before? And how many times have we seen, oh yeah, we won the Stanley Cup because of our third line. Penguins, Tampa, just talked to Berkey, his Sammy Paulson line in 2007. I don't know. Zach, you want to weigh in on this one? This one looks challenging for the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, I don't think Oilers fans are going to be too happy hearing us say that or hearing Berkey talk about it or hearing what you said the other day, but this feels like one time that I think people are really excited to see a matchup go again. Like, it's like, okay, well, we have to see this again and again and again, but this one actually does really feel like it could result differently. I think it's going to be LA. I feel like Kemper's going to step up. I had concerns, I think even maybe before you did, about Edmonton and just what they could rely on in goaltending come playoff time, and I think a lot of that is just really coming to the surface here now for people watching, keeping an eye on that series.
I only saw about a month's worth of good hockey from Edmonton this year. Yeah. And I kept saying to myself, don't worry. They'll flip the switch. Edmonton always does this, and they'll flip the switch. And then there was it December, we saw that really good stretch from the Oilers where they're looking like the best team in the NHL. Like, oh, okay, here we go. Oilers are turning it on now. And then they went back. The injury to Ekholm is a crusher. Absolutely. Before I move on with the show, I want to remind you of a new partner that we have here on the sheet, and that is JP Wiser's. Celebrating playoff hockey with Canadian whiskey, that's wisely done. Get your limited edition JP Wiser's Stanley Cup bottle at your local retailer today. JP Wiser's, expertly crafted and aged to perfection, is known for its smooth, refined taste and the premium whiskey experience it delivers for Canadians. Grab the new limited edition Stanley Cup bottle and enjoy the quality that matches the intensity of playoff hockey, which gets underway tomorrow with a couple of games. Before we move on and talk about some of the games for tomorrow, something really cool on the Leafs Nation YouTube. Now, how was it? A few months ago, we released the Stephen Brunt interview with Adam Copeland, who you probably know better as a professional wrestler by the name of Edge. So he lives in North Carolina, in Asheville, I believe. And so as part of Stephen Brunt's interview, he did a sort of wander around the Copeland property. And a big part of Adam Copeland's house is his Maple Leafs fan cave or fan room. Look at that smile on Zach Phillips. Oh, barely enough loose skin to blink. the ultimate Maple Leafs fan cave. This is on our Leafs Nation YouTube. Here's a little teaser, a little preview of what you can see now. Here's Stephen Brunt with Adam Copeland at his house talking goalie masks.
You have a pretty good cross-section of Leaf goaltending history here, don't you?
Kind of took it from the 70s all the way through.
Yeah.
Right? So, we got Bunny LaRock, and I always loved Bunny LaRock. The fact that he had a nickname, the fact that it was Bunny, the fact that there's a Playboy bunny on his mat, like, come on, and Paul Matier and Joseph Wall. This one I really like because it's a Maple Leaf Gardens mask, and it's signed by 5 different goalies. So that one's really special. Why it has the center, and and this is Wall's tribute to Belfour, and then we got Felix and Cujo and the Eagle, and then I also love Martin Brodeur. So Marty's up there represented, and we got a Carey Price Canada mask as well, because obviously I'm a fan of Team Canada.
So a couple of things here, and you can find that on our Leafs Nation YouTube channel. So Michel Bunny LaRock, the late Michel Bunny LaRock, many would say that he was the best backup goaltender ever. He was a backup for Ken Dryden in those dynasty days. Moved to Toronto and became the starter. And the one thing I will always recall, and it's a great highlight with a great call, and you can find it on YouTube. And I know you're a Maple Leafs fan, so I'm sure you've watched this over and over again as you look at the great saves in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. Stop Wayne Gretzky on a penalty shot. Now, albeit Wayne Gretzky always admitted he was awful on breakaways and penalty shots. It's probably why Mark Crawford didn't put him in the shootout in '98, but that's for a different conversation. But Michel Bunny LaRock stopping Wayne Gretzky on the penalty shot with that big red Titan. I think it was the red Titan, the big red Titan goaltender. So that's when I always think about Bunny LaRock as a Toronto Maple Leaf. And then Mike Palmateer, who we mentioned as well, in the history of great Maple Leaf saves, going back to 1978 or 79 when they played the Islanders and Landon McDonald scored on Chico Resch and gave the Maple Leafs a very unlikely victory. About a minute or two before that, Mike Palmateer made a save on, I think it was Billy Harris, after a Randy Carlyle giveaway, which, considering Maple Leafs fans take any kind of huge moment in the team's history and magnify, blow it up way out of proportion. I still maintain, it's true. It's okay. We can all admit it. That Palmateer save is one of the biggest saves. Might not be the nicest save. That's probably Ken Reggett on Gino Cavallini, Toronto St. Louis playoffs. But that save on Harris might be the biggest single save in Maple Leafs history. Do we go that far? Because if he doesn't make that save, and it's a bad giveaway by Randy Carlyle, if he doesn't make that save, there's no Lanny McDonald heroics to run that back over and over and over again. It's an incredible save. Anyway, when he mentioned Bunny and mentioned Mike Palmateer, those are the two things that flash back to memory. And I'm sure you've documented all of those on your program, or Alberga has on his program, you noted Leafs fans.
Yeah. General Soreness here asked, why is Palmateer called the popcorn kid? Surely Jeff knows the answer to that.
I do. It's because he would eat a bag of popcorn before every game. There's nothing to it other than that. He was just a guy that ate popcorn, and then I think it would have been, who was it Milt Dunnell in the Star? Maybe Milt Dunnell gave him the nickname when he had mentioned that he ate a lot of popcorn or he liked popcorn, just called him the popcorn kid. He was the guy. How about this for Cocky? Went into the Maple Leafs office when he was after he was drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs, went into the office and said, "Your goaltending problems have been solved." Get out of my office, kid.
See, that's what I would want out of my goalie, though. If he's coming in with that confidence, that's what I want. I like that. I want the guy coming in and say, it's my net.
It's my net. And listen, he was that team. Palmateer was a big part of it. That team, before it got dismantled by Punch Imlach for petty feuds, part of them under orders from Harold Ballard. That team was, no joke, Zach. That team was probably 2 players away, one more forward and one defenseman, from being a Stanley Cup worthy team. They had such a good team. Sittler, McDonald, Jones and Butler killing penalties, Salming, Turnbull, Palmatier. It was a real. Now, part of the problem was in WHA expansion, Harold Ballard refused to match contracts and let like all these young Maple Leafs, all the young defense for the Maple Leafs. I'm going, what am I getting on this topic? All the Maple, like Jim Dory, Rick Lee, like all these guys, like they all left. And like all the young defensemen for the Toronto Maple Leafs were just gone. And all the teams that bid against contracts, Flyers, Islanders, you're noticing a theme here, Habs, they all won Stanley Cups. Ballard said, "You want to chase an extra nickel? Go for it. Get out of here." And the Maple Leafs became what the Maple Leafs became. And they had a great coach in Roger Nielsen, too. Anyhow, how did we get to talking about Rick Lee and Jim Dory from Adam Copeland? Here we are.
The masks and
Flipper.
the
That was Jim
popcorn
Dory's
kid.
nickname. That was Jim Dory's. You know why they
Flipper?
called him Flipper? Yeah, because he was
Yeah.
one of the first ones to, and you see this all the time now, just flip pucks out of the zone. J.C. Tremblay would flip pucks towards goaltenders, which is another thing that I can't figure out why more players don't do. When you flip a puck towards a goaltender, you know when it bounces? You know where the puck's going?
Anywhere.
No one knows, including the goalie. Like I
Yeah.
seriously don't know why players. Maybe I'm just being stupid here, and there's an obvious answer. Why players don't just flip pucks in front of goaltenders?
Yeah.
You have no idea where the bounce is going. Goalies seldom can play a short hop.
Fair.
I don't know.
That's fair. You know what's funny about these nicknames that you're saying? Laz posted a picture of the Stanley Cup, the inside, the
Yeah.
other day, and it's engraved with the Montreal Wanderers in there. Some of the names that are in the cup, it's reading those old school names are hilarious. Like there was one that was engraved in it, Mr. Chip and Chase. That was his name. Engraved in the cup. Mr. Chip and Chase.
You know
This
what?
is his name.
You know what? You know what? The one of the great stories about the Stanley Cup, and I'm not. This is not out of school. Like he's talked about this before. When one of the years the Pittsburgh Penguins won it, Phil Bourque on his day with the cup, all buckled, like just bombed, decided to take the Stanley Cup apart to see what was inside.
Hockey dumb.
Hockey dumb. But I'm kind of surprised it's never happened before. I'm sure. Maybe it has. Phil would be a great guest to have on, by the way. He's one of the game's great personalities. You can tell the taking apart the Stanley Cup. If you had the Stanley Cup for a day, would you spend some time taking it apart to see what it looked
No.
like from the inside? Well, Phil Bourque did, ladies and gentlemen. Phil Bourque did. What else do we have here today? How's chat doing, by the way? I've been going on about old Toronto Maple Leaf stories. I see Singsy's back, which is always a good
Yes.
thing. Our boy Singsy.
Yep, Singsy is back. Sent off the Morning Cup of Hockey playoff bracket for people to be able to join there.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to compete, I joined yesterday. Vic and Laz were on me about that, so got me to sign up. So if anybody else wants to sign up, head on over there. It's in the chat right now. But yeah, chat's been good. Enjoyed the double GM day here, Jeff.
Donnie Waddell's great, eh?
Yeah, great.
Do you consider that a successful season for the Blue Jackets? I do.
Yep. Yes, I do. I do. And, you know, I think that expectations of the team, given what occurred in the summer here, you know, everyone probably would have given them a grace period. And to have the competitive season that they did following that, to have success stories in Marchenko and Fantilli taking strides, even the way you close it out with Jet Greaves, I think those are all just positives for
Dude,
this group.
Dante
and a
Fabro.
competitive season.
Dante Fabro found like a new lease on life. Like how good, and it happened right away. Dante Fabro
Yeah.
looked awesome with Columbus when he came over from Nashville. Right away, Fabro looked good.
Which
A
you
lot of
got to
good
be
success
looking in
stories.
Nashville going, what the hell's going on? Like Carrier in Montreal, Fabro going on. Trying to think about who else. Who else did they move on
It
from?
was
That's-
not the best of all possible seasons for the Pred. That's going to be one of those teams. And I don't want to say I don't want to say that it's like the general manager is running the team like he's a coach, because I think that trivializes things. But didn't it seem like there was an element of, I don't care about the ages, I'm just bringing on players that are going to help me now, which is very much like a coach. Like coaches think like in the moment, like who's going to help us win the next game. The GM needs to think about like the next 5 years. All the coach can think about is who's going to help us win the next game. And I'm sure like when you think that way, probably for as long as Barry Trotz has, maybe it's hard to get out of that. You know, maybe that's one of the reasons why coaches don't necessarily become managers, and we don't see like that split portfolio anymore, where like it used to be common, where the coach was also the general manager. Coaches just think of who's going to help me win the next game, right? Who's going to help me the next day, and that's maybe why you see like a long-term deal for UC Saros, and here comes Stamkos, and here comes Marcia. Like it was over and over and over again, and we're looking at this after a horribly disappointing season and saying, you're tin-canned to these contracts now. Like you're tethered to these deals.
You know what he did? I think a lot of people, probably anybody who's ever played NHL be a GM on like EA Sports or anything like that would recognize. He said it earlier in the year, and it was like at the time I kind of agreed with him, but the more it went on, I think it actually ended up like the be a GM. So he said it was like he played fantasy hockey, which to an extent I agree. But what he did was what we all used to do when we were kids, where you go out and you get 45-year-old Jaromir Jagr and sign him to a 6-year, $20 million deal. You win the Stanley Cup the one year, and then you force him to retire the next year. It's like, well, that's not how this works. You got every single player who's at the end of their prime, is really old, sign him to as many millions of dollars as you want forever, and then you just don't worry about it, because at the end of the season when you won the Stanley Cup, you shut off the PlayStation and you start a new career or start a new season or whatever. Like, there's no repercussions. Like, he kind of did some of that here. Even part of the problem, we went to the trade deadline, how many times did we see articles or hear people on shows or anything like that talk about, well, how do you trade that contract, though? Well, who wants that contract? It's not even just about the player and the performance. It went beyond that. How do you get rid of that guy? Because who wants that guy in 2 years at that money? And it's like, man, you didn't just go and bring in these guys. You really locked some stuff up that kind of made it, I don't want to say impossible, but very difficult to move on from, especially in season. Probably easier in the summer when you have more options, but in season, that's when we get the tough situations where you got to be real creative.
And you don't have a Skarov anymore either. Now, they had
That's the name I was thinking.
They had been willing to move him before at the Nashville draft. The offer on the table was to, again, San Jose, but it was for the 4th overall pick, which would have been Will Smith. That's who Nashville wanted. And they were dangling Askarov. They ended up doing the deal with the San Jose Sharks. They didn't get Will Smith. They didn't get Will Smith in that deal. Nonetheless.
Nope.
Time now for the Crispy Inbox. And I think we have a good one here today as well. Presented by the Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 Portable Glass Air Fryer. Have a look.
Meet the first of its kind. The Ninja Crispy Portable Cooking System. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand. So you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
It's what the Dallas Stars, maybe specifically Jake Ottinger, is going to feel like when they're trapped out there with anyone from the right side on the ice, and Colorado swarming with Natchez and McKinnon and McCarr.
Like they're in the crispy.
They throw Landeskog over the boards. Oh my, stop. Anyhow, it's an all-in-one system. Oh man, I do not look forward to this with Dallas. It's an all-in-one system that includes 4-quart, 6-cup Tempware glass containers and 2 storage lids. The Ninja Crispy is thermal shock resistant and can go from frozen to crispy in minutes. With the Crispy Power Pod, you get the power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hands. The 4-quart container fits 4 pounds of chicken or veggies. Cook a personal-sized meal in just 7 minutes in the 6-cup container. Max Crisp, bake, air fry, and recrisp with a Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. Visit their website in the link in the description and stay tuned for a chance to win a free Ninja Crispy for one of our lucky fans. The way to get in on the Crispy inbox is email the show, your questions, your comments, anything. The Sheet at thenationnetwork.com. That is the Sheet at thenationnetwork.com. We got a crispy one here today, do we not?
Yeah, we do. You keep talking about ways to spice things up with players getting traded and waiving their no trade clauses. This one comes in from Paul from the south of Spain, actually. The beginning of this was saying he was looking out over the water. With the players, will the players negotiate a trade kicker like the NBA has for their trade protection? I know Jeff has talked about giving the guys something, and we know Gary doesn't like money outside the system. A trade kicker gives the player something and keeps the money in the system. A player can negotiate that. If he's traded to a team on his no trade list, he gets a bump in salary there that counts against the cap. This means the acquiring team needs to have the space available for the larger hit. More players may like this as it can offset going from no tax to more tax situations. Love the show, and I look forward to Tuesday and Fridays, even though I get them Wednesdays and Saturdays. Paul from the south of Spain.
Paul, thanks. That's a really interesting one. So essentially what happens is then if you get traded, and I'm assuming you'd have to agree to this to waive the no trade clause, or is it just we're trading you to a team that's on this list, which really doesn't matter because we're moving you there. We don't need your permission, but you're getting a raise in the process that stays with you for the remainder of that contract. So let's say you're a $5 million hockey player and you have Toronto on your no trade, but they want to trade you to Toronto, and you agree to waive, and the price tag on that, all of a sudden your $5 million contract goes to, let's just say, to make it easy, $6 million. So you get something for that. The one thing the NHL has been very sensitive around, and they don't want to open up this can of worms, is renegotiating contracts. And essentially what this does is renegotiate contracts, which I'm fine with. Like, how many times have you heard me say we got to take like the training wheels off this, off the salary cap? Like, we're all used to the salary cap now. Like, this is a child's salary cap. Let's let it grow up a little bit here. Let's let the salary cap start to walk and run a little bit. So listen, I like the idea. To the final point to me is really interesting, and I'll think about. Like the one player that comes to mind, and that is like when you're going from a no tax to a higher tax state in a trade. You know who I think about? I think about Ryan Ellis. So Ryan Ellis, who, and I think we've forgotten just how good a defenseman Ryan Ellis was. And man, could he shoot the puck. Holy smokes.
World Juniors legend, too.
Oh, total World Juniors legend. OHL legend as well. So Ryan Ellis goes from Tennessee to Pennsylvania. And this is why it's always important when you're playing on a team and I know that the way that taxes are calculated is also based on how much travel and where you go when you travel. But for the purposes of keeping something simple, when you play on a team that has no state tax, generally you take less because the lion's share of your money is getting stuck in your jeans outside of escrow. But in those situations, whenever I talk to agents or players, will always tell you when you're going to do that, you have to insist on getting trade protection. Because much like Ryan Ellis, he went from 0 state tax to whatever it is in Pennsylvania. Like, you're going to a situation where I got traded and now I'm taking a pay cut. And guys are really sensitive to that one, which is why if you're going to give the team friendly deal, it's gotta come with trade protection. And that's one of the things I think you should always keep in mind when players are asked to waive their no trade to certain markets, because in certain situations, what you're asking the player to do is not only waive something that's been negotiated in good faith, but waive it get no compensation whatsoever and take a pay cut if you're going to a higher tax state. That's also at play here. That's a really smart email. I'm really glad we got that on the show. That is a really, really smart email. And the one guy that comes to mind right away is Ryan Ellis. Now, the other thing, I remember this with Wade Redden. Remember when Wade Redden got waived by the New York Rangers and went to Hartford, the American Hockey League? I can't remember. Was he making like $5 million a year, $6 million a year? It had like term left on the deal. And everyone's like, "Oh, that's so awful for Wade Redden. He's an NHLer. He belongs there. He shouldn't be on the but." He got a raise. He's not paying escrow. You don't understand. Like, from like the real game of hockey, which is how much money can I put in my bank before I have to retire? That's a win. Like, honestly, that is an absolute win. Sign a monster contract, get waived to the American League so you don't have to pay escrow. Major win for that NHLer. Now, mind you, you don't get to ride on the charters and live that lifestyle.
Steak dinners.
Yeah, but if you're just worried about putting money in your jeans, bravo, Wade Redden.
Yeah.
Bravo, Wade Redden. You won the real game of hockey. All right. A couple more things here before we bid you good weekend. Want to let you know, of course, that our good friends at FanDuel power this program, for lack of a better term. FanDuel, home of the same game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel is proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Jeff, why are you doing this segment? There are no games tonight. That is true. April 18th, there are no games. So I will offer this bit of advice. Go to bed early. Get your sleep. Whatever you do to help get you to sleep, whether it's yoga, whether it's reading, whether it's a gummy, doesn't matter. Get to sleep, because you're about to go through a couple of months of chaos here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And along the way, you're going to find those nights and those mornings specifically where, oh man, I'm really, really tired. Do yourself a favor and get some sleep tonight. Yes, Zach, I'm talking to you. Tomorrow, there are a couple of games. St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets, 6:30 Eastern. Puck drops there. Colorado, Dallas, 8:30 Eastern. Also, the Women's World Semifinals. USA versus Czechia, and Canada faces off against Finland. Marie-Philippe Poulin leads the tournament with 9 points in 5 games, followed by Jennifer Gardner, who has 7, followed by, also with 7, Kelly Panic, Alex Carpenter, and Hillary Knight. So Women's World's semifinals go tomorrow, and we have 2 games kicking off the Stanley Cup playoffs: St. Louis, Winnipeg, Colorado, and Dallas. You know what's interesting about St. Louis and Winnipeg? Well, there's a few things, but one of the things that I was thinking about this morning is how quickly Dylan Holloway's become a really important player for the St. Louis Blues. I don't know if they can win without Dylan Holloway. Now, you would look at Winnipeg and say, I'm not sure they can win without Nick Ehlers. I'm not sure they can win without a healthy Gabe Filardi. But we're already saying, I don't know if St. Louis can do this without Holloway. Just the offer sheet boys have become so important to that team so quickly that here we are already saying, can St. Louis do this without Dylan Holloway? Listen, I don't think St. Louis wins this series, but it's going to be fascinating to watch Jordan Binnington and Connor Hellebuck, your Four Nations final goaltenders, going head-to-head in this one, to say nothing of Shen versus Shen. And we'll see it tomorrow, starting at 6:30 Eastern, St. Louis and Winnipeg. You have a thought on that one?
Yeah, just you want to expand on the offer sheet boys and how important they are to St. Louis, both of them, honestly. Mm-hmm. Where did they come from? And
Edmonton.
Who could use depth right now?
Edmonton. Yes. No, I know. Oh, I know. When the autopsy is done on this era of the Edmonton Oilers, and I always talk about, there are some eras with some teams that deserve books, and even though Ed Willis has recently written one, he might want to do an update on the Vancouver Canucks given what happened this season. But also, going back to Connor McDavid getting drafted in Edmonton, there's a really good one here about everything that's gone on and how it's happened. So I remember his rookie
First
season
chapter,
and-
the cold
What's that?
envelope. The cold envelope. First chapter.
Are you on that? Are you a conspiracy cold envelope Patrick Ewing kind of guy in the NHL?
I like them. I don't think that a lot of them are real, but I like them. They're fun.
Fun to talk about.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to
You
read,
get,
talk about. Yeah.
You get a certain intensity after beer 4 or 5 when you start, you start talking about it. Like, is there anything? Here's a topic for a show one day. What is the worst hockey bar conversation to hear? Like, what are the ones where, like, I don't know about you, but whenever I hear someone defend the quality of their show by saying, "Oh, it sounds like you're just hanging out with your buddies at the bar," I don't remember one bar conversation about hockey that I've heard like at the table over that I've wanted to be part of. Have you ever heard like a conversation from anyone at a bar about hockey where you've been like, "Oh, you know what, hun? Let's just have one more because these guys are having a really interesting conversation about hockey that I just can't drag my ears away from." I have never heard an interesting bar conversation about hockey. Have you? We all think we've been part of them. We all think we've been part of them. I'm telling you, they're all terrible.
That's
They're
what I was
all
going to say
awful.
is I think I'm a part of all of them.
Like, oh yeah, the show's
Yeah.
great. It's like just like you're hanging out at the bar with your buddies. You know how bad those conversations are? Those talks are awful because there's always the one guy that's been overserved who dominates the conversation and can't let anyone remotely make a decent point because he's got to come in screaming over top of everybody. There's always that guy that even when a conversation like rises to the level of, oh, this might be mildly curious, there's always that one way drunk guy that'll wreck every conversation. Again, I'll defy anybody in the chat, anyone listening, anyone watching, and you, Zach, as well. Tell me one great hockey bar conversation you've ever heard. I'll wait.
Hey, you know what? I love the conversations. I love them happening. I love being a part of them. So I'm not going to.
How many of them are
on.
good? How many of them
All
are
of
good?
them.
How many
if
of you
we're talking
like,
hockey, Jeff,
ooh.
they're all good. If
I
we're talking
understand, and
hockey,
we've
they're
all done
good.
it. But honestly, we all think we're part of great conversations when we're getting buckled. They're not good. I'm just here to ruin all of it. They're not good. They're not good.
Well,
They're not good.
I enjoy them. I'll be a part of them. I'll be a part of them Sunday, Jeff. And I want.
Well,
to
hang
throw
on
that
a
out there
second.
before
When
we
you
close the show.
when you say that, it reminds me of an old saying. And you know what that is?
No.
They say there's one jerk at every party, but I don't believe them because I've never seen the guy.
yeah. I thought you were gonna hit me with the shots 8-1, and then that was
Ooh,
that
shots
was the end
8-1.
of the
That's
show.
good.
Yeah.
I expected
Willie's
text for
making-
you. What's Willie doing now?
I
That's
got
right.
99 shots in a bar hockey conversation. Yeah.
Right on, Styles. You know what's up. Yep.
No.
Yep. Oh yeah, Adam Gilkis, Brett Hull, foot in the crease. Yeah, those conversations. General Soreness, what does Jeff hate more, bar hockey conversations or the hockey song? I will. I'll put a hockey song as like number one. There's not even a number two. Put it that way. It's like hockey song number 1, 2 is burned. We go to number 3. That's how bad hockey song is. Get off my lawn.
You know what
Merrick says,
conversation
"Sing
I-
Z." That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grumpy
You know what
guy.
conversation I've probably had the most this year at the bar being asked by anybody?
What's that?
Is Mitch Marner coming back next year? Watch the show.
You know what the Leafs think?
At
You know what the
first it
Leafs,
was like,
you
yeah,
know what the
sure.
Leafs problem is? Oh, this will be good. That's the one I'll be like, oh, this will be good. I'll tell you what the problem with the Leafs is. Oh, okay, this will be good.
I'm like, okay. Eventually, it was just like, I think I've had this conversation. I love talking hockey. I love talking Leafs. So I'm like, I think I've
So
had
do
this
I.
conversation too
So do
many
I.
times.
I'm not going to pretend that any of the conversations I've had are remotely interesting at a bar. That's all I'm saying. As dudes get buckled after beer league.
Yeah, fair. I will probably be having those tonight. Just say what it is. Like, that's probably why I'm defending it.
Here's what I want you to
it.
do, though. Here's what I'm going to surrender the floor to you.
Okay.
What are you doing Sunday?
Sunday, for start of Leafs playoffs, game 1, as well as every game in the playoffs here, it looks like now. We're going to be at Greta Bar YYZ, in Toronto, doing live shows. It's a lot of fun there. It's somewhere I was going a lot when it first opened, and then we got to partner with them here, part of Leafs Nation. Nice. It's a lot of fun. I really like the establishment, but we're going to be doing pregame show Sunday and Tuesday before the Leafs Sens games, and then we're going to be doing a live after dark there at the bar. So King Street West, downtown Toronto. If you guys want to come out, say hi, be a part of it, watch the game with us, that's where we'll be. And then Vic and I are working on something. Producer Vic and I are working on something. So give more details later, but likely games 3 and 4 there as well. We'll see. We'll figure it out, but game 1 and 2, 100%.
That's awesome. What's the menu like at Greta? I don't even know. I was only there the one time with the hockey night in Scottsdale guys.
It's really, really good, actually. Like, you can get bar food, but then there's street food menus. Upstairs they have this little window that you can go up to and order. So there's different kinds of sandwiches and platters and stuff. Yeah, it's awesome. You go up, order at it. You can sit down or you can stand there and wait. Comes to you. It's quick service, good service. But it's snack food if you want snack food, which a lot of people there are probably looking for snack food, Jeff.
No.
But there's also just full meals. I just
came in from the alley and I'm really hungry. Can I see that menu? Okay.
Yeah, but it's good. It's really good food.
It's
excited to be there.
It's a great spot. It really is. Enjoy. All right, listen. This was GM's Day. Normally it's just Berkey Day, but I wanted to do something with the Columbus Blue Jackets before he went just sort of head straight into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And so I really appreciate Don Waddell for stopping by. And thanks to the great Todd Chirac of the CBJ's communications team for making that happen. All right, playoff time. It's going to be wonderful. We all know exactly what's going to happen, and we're all wrong. Because the wonderful thing about playoffs is the unexpected happens. Well, it certainly does in the first round. A little bit later on, guys get tired, and guys get hurt, and guys get injured, and that is just sort of this battering ram of let's see. By the time, I've always maintained this is why Cinderella runs never really happen in the NHL. In the end, it's always a really good team that wins. And I don't want to disparage the St. Louis Blues, but that really was a Cinderella team, and that is so rare. Will we see that this year from a quote-unquote Cinderella team? Could it be those aforementioned Blues? Could it be a team like the Minnesota Wild? Could it be the Montreal Canadiens? Could it be the Habs? Who knows? None of us know, and that's part of the beauty of sports, of course. Again, it's a tug between what your heart feels and your head knows, and that's what makes it all so beautiful. It all gets underway tomorrow. We're back on the air Monday, 3 o'clock Eastern, to talk about all of it. Morning Cup of Hockey on our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel right here. Monday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern, Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen, Daily Faceoff live at noon, and then our program. Should mention as well, we'll be going to Ottawa for Game 3. So the show will be coming to you from Ottawa, and I think we're changing the start time for the Thursday and Friday show. More information on that as it becomes available to us. In the meantime, get a good night's sleep tonight. Really, invest in yourself. You have a lot of hockey to watch. A lot of hockey coming up. Just take one night and go to bed early. Wake up refreshed. And then get ready for the craziness starting tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern. Enjoy. We're back Monday. Have a great weekend. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.